Let me be a free man. Free to travel, free to stop, free to work, free to trade where I choose. Free to choose my own teachers. Free to follow the religion of my fathers. Free to think and talk and act for myself. And I will obey every law or submit to the penalty. Chief Joseph.
The first boarding schools were one in Carlisle, Pennsylvania, Haskell Institute in Lawrence, Kansas, I think Riverside Boarding School in California. Those were some of the Flanger Indian School in Flanger, South Dakota. There's another one up in Oregon, I can't think the name of it. But these were the first schools where they would physically remove children from the reservation hundreds of miles on a train to a place like Carlisle. One of my grandfathers went to Carlisle, and he always used to laugh because they trained him in you go there to learn a trade, basically. In Carlisle, he became a harness maker. And he said, by the time I learned making harnesses and working with leather, people started driving cars. So another one of those successful BIA training programs, you know. But the whole boarding school experience started back probably around my grandfather's days. Late 1800s, early 1900s, they just had a few. Then the government made a policy decision of acculturation, assimilation was the best way. And so they teamed up with the Christians, and they brought in Christian boarding schools along with government, Bureau of Indian Affairs government schools, almost every reservation, especially out in this area because, you know, the reservations are big. And even like where my wife's from in northern Minnesota, they had a Christian boarding school, and then they had a government one in Pipestone that a lot of kids, Ojibwe, Winnebago, Dakotas were sent over that way. Over here, our reservations are bigger. We had both. We had a government and a Catholic school primarily, in some cases Episcopal. But the boarding school experience, I think, was most devastating on families because it split up a natural harmony between young children and their mother and father. Not all the kids that went to boarding school came from broken homes or alcoholic parents. The vast majority were sent to boarding school by law, by force.
We've come to know a term in international law that's becoming more accepted called ethnocide. This is a role that the churches play. They do to the mind what you can't do with the, say, the bullet. That is converting people from traditional ways of relation to the Creator, traditional ways of worship. They destroyed a lot of that, created some of the first boarding schools, as some of us experienced, and of course took on the whole system of acculturation and assimilation. You weren't allowed to speak your language, for example. Your hair was cut immediately. All traditional clothing was replaced by military clothing, and you were not allowed to speak your language. So it was almost as if they were creating a social experiment on every reservation. As we say in our communities, the Christians came with the Bible and we had the land. Now we got the Bible and they got the land.
Leave my home, my friend. Think I'll go back there again. Wounded knee, I wanna be free. Oh, 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 oh.
I grew up with a lot of the older people, listening to the stories. And those stories were inside of me. And I went into a boarding school system, and they killed those stories in that system. I came out of there totally ashamed of who I am, of what I am. In the late 60s, I went back to the culture. On my own, I let my hair grow, I started speaking my language. And in one of those times, I fasted. I did the Vision Quest for 5 years. And one of those years, it was a beautiful night. Stars were out, and it was calm. It's just beautiful. And it was around midnight, and I got up and I prayed. And I sat down and sat there for a while, and then all of a sudden I had these like a flashbacks of Sand Creek, Wounded Knee. And every policy, every law that was imposed on us by the government and the churches hit me one at a time. One at a time. And how it affected my life. And as I sat there, I got angrier and angrier until it turned to hatred. And I looked at the whole situation, the whole picture. And there was nothing I could do. It's too much. The only thing I could do, to me, was when I come off that hill, I'm going to grab a gun and I'm going to start shooting. And go that way. Maybe then my grandfathers will honor me if I go that route. I got up and I came around and I faced the east direction. And it was beautiful. I mean, it was dawn, light, enough light to see the rolling hills out there. And right above that blue light, in that darkness, was the sliver of the moon and the morning star. And I wanted to live. I want to live. I want to be happy. I feel I deserve that. But the only way that I was going to do that was if I forgive. And I cried that morning because I had to forgive. Since then, every day I work on that commitment. Now, I don't know how many people felt it, but every one of us, if you're a Lakota, you have to deal with that at some point in your life. And you have to address that. You have to make a decision. If you don't, you're going to die on the road someplace. Either from being too drunk, or you might take a gun to your head if you don't handle those situations. So this isn't history. I mean, it's still with us. What has happened in the past will never leave us. Next 100, 200 years, it'll be with us. And we have to deal with that every day.